Alright, welcome back here. John Stanko alongside Michael Ritz here. We are actually outside Mozilla Fear here at Iona College, watching some Iona men's soccer. We're going to get to this podcast no matter where we are.
Yeah, that's how dedicated we are. Just for an update, we got the Gales up 1-0 on Albany right now. They're looking pretty good.
They are looking pretty good. It was a beautiful goal Iona scored on. So things are looking good for the Gales. But we're here to talk about week 1 of the NFL season, which had a ton of big games, a ton of storylines. Mike, what stood out to you?
I guess the first game of the year, you have Peyton throwing 7 touchdowns, no picks. The first time in about 50 years that's happened. And I think that the fact that it was Peyton to do it is even bigger because I guess the schneid on him is that I think people still worry about his neck and how long he has left. And look, these Broncos are here to stay for right now, at least. And it was a huge game for them against the defending champs. And that was the first thing that stood out to me was Peyton's great performance. What about you?
I mean, that first game, just drawing that, how bad the Ravens played. I'm going to draw on that. While Peyton was great, you can't ignore how anemic the Baltimore Ravens offense looked. They don't have Anquan Bolden. Obviously, as a close almost goal by the Iona Gales. But obviously, Anquan Bolden stood out for San Francisco at over 200 yards. Do you think Joe Flacco misses him right now?
No, definitely.
Ray Rice only had 36 yards rushing, the New Rochelle local. The Ravens played awful while the Denver Broncos played great, and it was just a recipe for disaster.
And I mean, at least I don't know about you, but I saw the Ravens having a down year. They lost so many pieces, including Ray Lewis. They just lost too much. It's gonna be a down year for Baltimore. But at least winning the Super Bowl last year, you kind of understand where the drop off is. But another thing that stood out to me was my Giants. It was a tough game to say the least. Talking about 7 touchdowns in the Broncos game, we had 6 turnovers by ourselves in the Cowboys game, and the fact that we, at least at the Giants, had a shot to win it.
Despite your 6 turnovers.
We had 5 turnovers, and we had the ball down 6 with Eli's hands, and I'd take those chances again, but I wouldn't take the 5 turnovers again. And then the 6th to basically end the game. But as bad as a game as it was, I wasn't that impressed by the Cowboys. I was kind of more impressed at how the Giants were able to stay in the game. So as a Giants fan, it stinks to take a loss to the Cowboys. But going forward, they're not going to have 6 turnovers every game. They're gonna find an answer to Daniel Wilson. Is he going to be the back? Or are we going to get somebody else? I know they tried out Brandon Jacobs and Willis McGahee. So despite the loss, I am kind of excited for my Giants.
I mean, I think there's a silver lining you could definitely take from that game. Also, you walloped Tony Romo and that sandwich. So that was also something I think Giant fans took appreciation.
Oh, anytime Romo can get hit like that is always great.
Also, Victor Cruz, there's a question about his health. He had a great game.
He was fantastic.
No need to worry about him anymore. I mean, the Giants obviously a silver lining. The Cowboys, they couldn't capitalize on all the opportunities. That game could have been a blowout, and the Cowboys, they really just were lackluster. But speaking of lackluster, the team that was just so atrociously awful was the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Tennessee Titans. I've never seen an offense play that terribly. Ben Roethlisberger is one of the good quarterbacks in the league. He looked terrible. He had no offensive weapons, and they made Jake Locker look good. They made Tennessee Titans, who had like the lowest, they allowed the most points last year out of any defense. They shut the Steelers down. The Steelers, the AFC North went undefeated. They had 0 wins, if you will. They pitched a shutout, but the Steelers looked the worst out of all of them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, going into, there's 2 minutes left in the 4th quarter, and you still have 2 points. That's going to be a problem. You're not beating anybody with that. It was a surprise to me. I mean, in our first podcast, I said the Steelers are going to be a questionable team, but not this questionable. No. Because now you really don't know where you're going to get from them, because it was a home game against Tennessee. You'd think that 9 times out of 10, you're going to pick Pittsburgh. So it was a surprise to me. But another kind of a surprise to me is I didn't think the Kansas City Chiefs were play that well.
Yes.
The Chiefs beating Jacksonville. I mean, 28-2. I know it's Jacksonville. I know they're one of the worst teams in the league. But Kansas City had a bunch of question marks. How's Andy Reid gonna respond? Is to a brand new team in Kansas City? Jamal Charles, how's he gonna do? It was a team full of question marks, and at least for now, the Chiefs are on the up and up.
I mean, Jamal Charles also got hurt in the 3rd quarter. Didn't even play the rest of the game, so it could have been worse than it was. Alex Smith looked really good, taking care of the ball. He didn't try anything crazy. He just did a good job. I mean, that's all you can ask for from him, and Andy Reid's going to instill. I think they're going to be a good team. The AFC West, I gotta say, based off what San Diego did last night, they lost, but they looked better than I thought they would. And the Oakland Raiders put up a game against the Colts. Terrell Pryor led the league in rushing for week 1. So the AFC West looks better than I thought they would.
Yeah, the Raiders were huge. I mean, they're an 18-yard run by Luck away.
Yep.
To coming out of Indianapolis with a win. So yeah, Oakland. I wouldn't put all my chips on Terrell Pryor.
No.
At least for the first game. I mean, he was great. Also, I was a little surprised at Seattle. I don't know about you. Seattle, they come away with the win. It was 12-7 against the Panthers, but I thought Russell Wilson was gonna have a better game. I thought Marshawn Lynch, who was a non-factor.
All you fancy owners.
Yeah, Marshawn Lynch was a non-factor in the game. I was a little surprised at how low scoring the game was, considering between Cam Newton didn't impress me at all.
Yeah.
It was just kind of a messy game that really didn't deserve a winner.
I mean, you think about it, I was impressed by Seattle defense because Cam Newton can be fantastic offensively. They did shut him down. I'll give them that. Offensively, I don't know whether to give credit to how lackluster or how bad the Seattle looked or to how good Carolina was prepared. I think it was one of those cases. Carolina came in with a great game plan, but they just frankly weren't as talented. It's just one of those times you play as best you can, you just can't win the game.
If you're Carolina, you need as many wins as you can get, and this one was definitely a missed opportunity to kind of steal a game early, because if you're going to be fighting for a playoff spot, these are the type of games that you're going to look at if one pass went the right way or if you made another defensive play, beating a good team like Seattle. But if you're Seattle, you get the win, you run away, and then you worry about week 2. But unfortunately, Stanko, we're going to have to talk about these Jets.
No.
For me, I was disappointed because it was just the way that it happened. First of all, Buccaneers were terrible all game. They really didn't do much for me. I was surprised how well Geno Smith kind of took things throughout the game. I feel like he was better throughout the game. He did have the interception in the first half, but going into the more series he played, you could tell he did get better. The last thing Mark Sanchez wanted to see. But that end of the game, I don't know if I would have threw the flag there, and I also wouldn't have pushed a quarterback out of bounds.
Exactly.
It was a messy game. Another game that nobody really deserved to win. Both teams did not play well, and for that game to end like that on a game-winning field goal with 2 seconds to go, it was a mess.
Doug Martin didn't do anything for Tampa Bay. And then that last play, I think, do you call that? It's controversial. He's going out of bounds. And I think the ref made the right call in calling it. It's borderline just because it was such a lackluster hit too. It's not gonna. We're gonna talk about San Francisco Green Bay. We're gonna get to that hit.
Yeah.
But just the way the Jets won, and now Jets fans are like, oh, this is a sign, we're going to have the close games. It's just like, no, living here in New York, they just get so optimistic about a game that they should have lost.
Yeah, and we talked about this last night. I mean, if you take away the penalty, everyone had the same stats. Everyone had the same stats, the same thing. Only thing would be different would be that field goal. And the conversations that people would be having right now would be much different than...
Is Rex Ryan being fired and stuff like that?
Rex Ryan getting fired. Now, on ESPN Radio, they were talking about, can the Jets make it to the Super Bowl, beating the Buccaneers?
The worst team in the NFC South.
They looked god-awful throughout the entire game. The Buccaneers were a mess, and to kind of... It's good for the Jets because a lot of people were knocking on them, and for them to come away with the win, that's very good for them, at least for their morale. Yes. They're going to get trounced by the Patriots on Thursday, which we'll get into in our next podcast. But it was I was not happy with the result of the game, just by the way that things happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy finish. It was like a video game, just 20 seconds left, let's see what can happen. Then you get the winning points. That's the way it was. But Jets fans have this optimism now because I don't think you're going to happen in the long run. I really don't think you're going to. But let's talk about that game was ugly. Let's talk about a well-played game. The San Francisco Green Bay game was really well played.
Definitely one of the games.
I think it might have been the game of the week because I was incredibly impressed with Colin Kaepernick. He threw for 412 yards, rushed for only 22 yards. And I heard this on ESPN, or actually read it on ESPN Twitter, is that Colin Kaepernick, a running quarterback, in quotes, running, had 22 yards rushing. Andrew Luck had more rushing yards than him, and he's a passing quarterback. it's one of those things. Kaepernick proved that he can be any type of quarterback he needs to be to win the game. And the battle, just the fantasy points between Colin Kaepernick and Aaron Rodgers was astronomical. But San Francisco pulled out a really tight game and a really well-played game.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think it was also Kaepernick's first 300-yard passing game, as well as his first 400-yard passing game. I think he needed that because I think he came out, he wanted to prove a point that he's not just a running quarterback.
Yeah.
And plus, he can't anymore. I think they need him. It was last year they had Alex Smith, and then he came in for Alex Smith. Look, now they know the 49ers, that's their guy. Kaepernick is going to be their guy each week. So you really don't know how they're going to do. But for Kaepernick was a huge win for them, and it was definitely a morale boost because I think Kaepernick really needed this type of game, a 400-yard passing game, getting 3 touchdowns, and beating a very good opponent in the Packers.
I mean, the Packers are going to be a good team, and you know what? Let's move on to Monday night. You got Philadelphia, Washington. Washington plays Green Bay next. It doesn't get any easier for Washington after losing to Philadelphia on the Monday Night Football, and I was immensely impressed, especially the first half with Chip Kelly's offense and what they were able to do. Deshaun Jackson was a new person, had over 100 yards receiving, had a touchdown. Michael Vick was throwing the ball. He was rushing the ball like he used to. They had 47 zone read option plays, and Michael Vick didn't turn the ball over once. So really impressive Philadelphia performance.
I was impressed with the first half of Philly, but there's 2 halves of every game, and where were they in the second half? I think Washington played a much better second half. I think RG3 woke up a little bit. I think the Redskins woke up a little bit. I think Philly is going to be one of those teams where you're going to see flashes of great play, but in a 16 game season, I don't know if they're going to come away rallying off 11 wins with this type of play.
Yeah.
Because I think this is how it's going to be for the Eagles. They're going to score a lot, but they're also going to give up a lot. And God forbid, if they don't score points, they're not going to have the defense to back it up. I also think their offense got tired by running so many plays. I think that is also a factor. Because for anybody, if you're running, they ran over 50 plays in the first half.
Yep.
So for anybody, you're going to be tired. I think, but look, they held on and they won. It was cool to see Washington come back in that game because I think RG3 needed that. He had a huge touchdown pass to get him back in it.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good game overall. In the first half, it was a hectic game. Philly just ran all over this Redskins, and that's the type of game that the first half is what the Eagles definitely want every game to go.
Yep.
That was their game plan.
I ask you this: if RG3 had played in the preseason and he wasn't so rusty in the first half, does Washington win that game against Philadelphia?
Yes, I think 100%,
so. 100%, you agree?
Yes, because I don't think they would have had as bad as a first half as they did. I think they would have been I think their offense would have been on the field a little longer.
Okay.
And it would take at least 1 or 2 possessions away from Philly when they scored. So yeah, I think if RG3 plays a couple games in the preseason, I would have saw Washington taking this one.
All right, and let's get to the last game of the week. You got Houston, San Diego. San Diego in the first half again. Tale of 2 halves. First half, they looked really good, and I was shocked. Ryan Matthews, a huge play to start it off, gets the touchdown off the interception. But then in the second half, the Texans defense wakes up, says, "All right, wait, we actually have a really good defense." Matt Schaub throws for almost 350 yards. Andre Johnson gets a touchdown, 150 yards. Arian Foster didn't do much on the ground, but they didn't need to. Phillip Rivers had a great game. To our dismay, Phillip Rivers had a good game. But San Diego did impress me with what they offered, especially in the first half. I thought they'd be much worse than that.
Kind of like Philly, San Diego just had one really good half. They were up 28-7 in this game, and Houston just woke up.
Yeah,
I think Houston woke up. Rivers also, he threw a bad interception, a pick six to Brian Cushing to tie the game up. But if you're up 28-7, I don't care who you are, you got to come away with that win at home.
Yeah.
Owen Daniels had a huge game, two touchdowns.
Yeah.
Schaub woke up, 346 passing yards. So it was a huge win for Houston because I don't know, Gary Kubiak needs to have a very good season this year because I feel like everyone keeps talking about the Texans every single year and they don't do anything. So it was a good win for Houston. It was very good slate of games. The horn
for a sub.
That's the horn for a sub goes up in the soccer game. Very good week 1 overall. And I don't know if you have anything else to say about week 1, but I was very impressed about how close the games were.
Every game had a storyline going into it, and even the St. Louis Arizona game we didn't even talk about was a great game to watch. Came down to the last couple of plays. We had the New Orleans Atlanta game, came down to the last play again. It was great defense by New Orleans. Storylines in every single game. I can't wait for week 2.
Yeah, I can't wait either. And
Football
also,
is back.
Also, I mean, Adrian Peterson runs for a 78-yard touchdown.
First play.
In the first play, and he doesn't even break 100.
Yep.
Do you worry about that at all against a Detroit defense where he could have ran all over it?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. There's so many questions going forward. We'll answer some more of them in our next podcast, which will predict week 2. We'll get our records from week 1, see how we all did. We both did fairly well.
We did okay.
We did okay.
All right. Better than I thought.
Yeah, better than most. Better than most. But we'll come back later this week, either Thursday or Friday, with our podcast predicting week 2. I'm John Stanko, Mike Ritz. Thank you for tuning in.